I wanted to find a place that would take my money and not use it to cause the financial crisis, but to fix the financial crisis and to help end income inequality.
The people that we employ are usually clients right off the streets. They don't have an account, but Amalgamated is willing to get that started for them.
Their reputation of supporting the working man, I think, speaks for itself. This is a bank that cares for their customers, and I appreciate that.
We were able to access a construction loan through the bank's programs, and that loan has helped us house 28 families in the community.
Amalgamated is a bank that was started for and about working people.
Many of our customers have a deep commitment to advocating for social and economic justice. We share that commitment, and we're not afraid to stand up and say that we need to change some of the way that the country does business.
Giving you everything you need to fight the Trump administration. This is The Bill Press Show. Live at youtube.com/The Bill Press Show.
On U.S. intelligence, who do you believe? 17 American intelligence agencies or alleged rapist Julian Assange? If you're Donald Trump, you believe Julian Assange. Hey, hello, everybody. Wow. Thursday, January 5. How about it? T-15. T- the end of civilization as we know it. It is the Bill Press Show. That's me, and it's good to see you today. Thank you so much for being part of the program. Thanks for joining us as we come to you from our nation's capital, Washington, D.C., our studio on Capitol Hill, just down the street from all the excitement yesterday where President Barack Obama, Vice President-elect Mike Pence both went to Capitol Hill to rally their forces for the big battle on Obamacare. And we'll bring you up to date on that. And also the big question everybody is asking, everybody with any sense is asking, how do we survive 4 years of Donald Trump? Good to have you with us. Look forward to getting your comments on Twitter at BP Show about everything we're talking about. And to add more fuel to the fire, a big hello to Peter Ogburn here. What's going on? What's shaking?
Hello, Bill. Hello. Yes, we have a couple of other stories to get into today. So the inauguration, as you mentioned, is 15 days away. Well, a pro-pot group is going to be giving away 4,200 joints on Inauguration Day. They're going to roll all of the joints and hand them out to people in the streets of Washington, D.C. Now,
why 4,200?
420.
420, blaze it.
Got it.
420 joints wouldn't go very far.
Right,
4,200
yeah,
joints
right.
will go very far. So they're going to be passing that, which of course is completely legal here in Washington, D.C.
Not in public.
Yes, it is, but you can't smoke it in public. You can have it and you can hand it out, but you got to be careful about handing it out on public or on government property. So they're not going to be doing that. They're going to be handing it out to people who are going to be here for the inauguration. So plan on meeting on the west side of DuPont Circle at 8 a.m.
Oh, not Capitol Hill?
Not Capitol Hill. Damn. Not Capitol Hill.
I don't have to go all the way to DuPont Circle.
I just want to know who's bankrolling this. That's a lot of weed.
Yeah, that's a lot of weed. That's a lot of weed. Adam Eidinger is a guy we've had in studio here before, the guy who has really been pushing for it here in D.C. He's in charge of this, and he's going to be helping roll all of those joints.
All right, well, good. So, the morning of inauguration morning, he will be one of our guests in studio.
Okay, well, he's going to be
a marijuana correspondent.
He's going to be pretty busy that day, but yes, absolutely. By the way, in England, this is a scary story, legitimately. 2016 didn't get Queen Elizabeth, but it almost did. She got up and went for a little walk around Buckingham Palace and outside in the garden at 3 a.m. late last year, and a guard saw her and nearly shot her because he thought that it was an intruder. He says later that he saw a shadowy figure come around the corner. He reached for a gun before he realized, oh my God, that's the Queen of England. She almost got shot.
Imagine what would have happened.
That sounds like something Biden would do.
God.
catch Biden around,
just like hanging out,
3 a.m.
drinking a Keystone Light.
Didn't she have the dogs with her?
I don't know. They didn't say anything about the dogs, but I mean, a 3 a.m. walk around the castle or the palace nearly got the better of her. And by the way, one final story. Speaking of,
you know what? What doesn't add up about that is, like at the White House, anytime the president moves, right, the message goes out. POTUS moving, from room to room. They track every single moment of it movement. You would think they would do that, like security outside of her bedroom would track saying she's up and she's out, right? And people would know that.
You would think, but I mean, I guess she just, when you're the Queen of England, you do whatever you want.
I am the Queen. Yes, indeed. Don't try to stop me either.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
Yes, indeed. Hello, everybody. On a Thursday, January 5, The Bill Press Show. Big showdown on Capitol Hill yesterday over Obamacare. Democratic forces meeting in one room in the Capitol. Democrats from the Senate and the House conferring, huddling with Coach Barack Obama. Republicans in the House and in the Senate huddling with Coach Vice President-elect Mike Pence. And they both girded for battle, and President Obama was there with a clear message to Democrats. Mike Pence there with a muddled message to Republicans. And the battle has already begun to repeal Obamacare. And someday, way down the road, maybe, just maybe, but maybe not, replace it with something else. I'll get into that and get your comments about it, but I got to start with the biggest hypocrisy, I think. Look, I've been covering politics for a long time. We've been doing this show for 11 years, right down the street from the United States Capitol. We've never seen anything like what we heard from Mitch McConnell yesterday. When it comes to Supreme Court nominees, yes, of course, there is talk that if and when Donald Trump, and it won't be long from now, Donald Trump makes his first appointment to the Supreme Court, that Democrats are not going to be in any big hurry to confirm him or her. They won't even be in any big hurry to meet with him or her, or to hold any hearings, or to cast any vote. What's the rush? Maybe, as Chuck Schumer indicated, we could wait a whole year before they take any action on a Supreme Court nominee. Mitch McConnell yesterday saying, no, this will never happen. The American people would never tolerate such a thing.
Apparently there's yet a new standard now, which is to not confirm a Supreme Court nominee at all. I think that's something the American people simply will not tolerate, and we'll be looking forward to receiving a Supreme Court nomination and moving forward on it.
Who does he think he's kidding? How dumb does he think we are? He says this on the heels of having held up Merrick Garland, refusing President Obama's nominee to the Supreme Court to replace Antonin Scalia, refusing to even hold a hearing to consider him, refusing to do their job of advise and consent, Republican senators refusing to meet with him. How long? Since last March, when President Obama nominated him. And on the heels of that, Mitch McConnell says, oh, Democrats had better not put any delay on any Trump nomination. The American people will never stand for it. Guess what? Yes, they will. They just did.
That's unbelievable.
They just did.
Can
you believe it?
I don't know how he could say that.
The chutzpah of this guy, right? I mean, again, how dumb does he think we are? Right?
I don't want to go down a whole side channel here, but here's something that I think is developing that's kind of interesting. Is Donald Trump could say this and get away with it, right? Like, people know that Donald Trump doesn't tell
point.
the whole truth.
Right.
And a lesson that a lot of these Republicans have taken from the election, which I think is going to bite them in the ass, is they think they can act like Donald Trump.
And say stuff like this.
And say totally false things.
Yeah.
They're not Donald Trump. Mitch McConnell is not Donald Trump.
That's a very good point. It sounded like a Trump tweet.
It did. It really did.
Sounded like
really
yeah.
did.
But guess what? No. He's not going to fool us, and we're going to call him on that. And I will hope, we'll get to this in just a little bit too. This really leads into what we want to talk about in terms of how to survive Donald Trump. I would hope that Democrats would give whoever Donald Trump's nominee the very same love and care and attention and immediate love that Republicans gave to Merrick Garland. Yeah, Mitch McConnell. Nice try, no cigar. On the showdown with Obamacare yesterday, in fact, it was high drama with the president himself, a visit to Capitol Hill, and an even more rare meeting with both House and Senate Democrats. And, of course, Donald Trump, who's not going to be bothered with governing. I mean, he's got more important things to do. God, come on, give him a break. He's got hotels to build all over the world. Got casinos to run and golf courses to play on and make sure they're not being flooded by climate change. He's a busy businessman. He can't be bothered with being president of the United States, so he sends Mike Pence up to do his dirty work on Capitol Hill. But I think the interesting stuff out of this yesterday came with President Obama's message to Democrats. It was not a public meeting, of course, but enough Democrats have talked about it. What we know the president told them was, and I was at the press briefing yesterday, and Josh Earnest told us reporters, the president's message was Obamacare is a great program. We've talked enough about it, my reservations about it. The president saying, look, Obamacare is a great program. It has helped millions and millions and millions of Americans. It can be made better, but it's got a lot of good parts to it. And it's up to us now to defend it. And most importantly, it's up to Democrats not to help Republicans undo it in any way. That this is going to be tougher than they think. They're going to find themselves in a lot of hot water when they tell 22 million Americans who now have health insurance for the very first time for themselves and their families. And when they tell them, guess what? You're out of luck. You got to go back and see if maybe the insurance companies will sell you a policy, which they probably won't because you probably have some previous illness for a member of your family. So just go back to the way things used to be. Republicans are going to find that very, very, very difficult, harder than they think. And President Obama, again, his message was, don't help them out. Don't meet them halfway. Don't bail them out. In other words, basically, it's what Colin Powell used to call the Pottery Barn rule for Republicans on Obamacare. If they break it, they freaking own it. And I thought that was a great message on President Obama's part.
Just to give you a little bit of an idea.
Fight together.
Just to give you a little bit of an idea of how this fight is going to play out. Donald Trump is tweeting.
Already this morning.
Yes, indeed.
Oh, yeah. This is a Bill Press Show breaking news update.
Donald Trump tweeting this morning, 14 minutes ago, the Democrats, led by head clown Chuck Schumer, know how bad Obamacare is and what a mess they are in. Instead of working to fix it, they do the typical political thing and blame. The fact is, Obamacare was a lie from the beginning. Keep your doctor, keep your plan. It is time for Republicans and Democrats to get together and come up with a health care plan that really works, much less expensive, and far better. Those are the words from our soon-to-be president.
There's several things wrong with that. Of course, he doesn't know what he's talking about. Again, it's another.
Start there.
No, it's another. It's another Donald Trump lie. But this is what they say. You hear this all the time. It's not working. It's too expensive. Nobody likes it. Yeah, that's all baloney. It's not. It's just simply not the fact. Again, the 22 million American families have health insurance today and can afford it because they never could get it before. The insurance companies would never accept them. They've got it today. Those people don't want to lose their health insurance. They don't want to lose their protection for themselves and for their families. And the fact is, 95% of Americans who have health insurance get it through their job. Of the rest of them who didn't have health insurance ever before, they get it through a state exchange or the federal exchange. And the fact is that 70%, get this, 70% of those people, again, who don't get it through their job, right, get health insurance through the exchange, 70% of them get a federal subsidy to buy their health insurance because they couldn't afford it otherwise. All right, so what you're saying to all of those people, again, is we're not going to, if you get rid of Obamacare, no subsidy, no state exchange, no opportunity to buy health insurance unless you are totally at the mercy of the insurance companies. And that's what we are going to do. Try telling that to 22 million Americans and try telling them, we know we're taking this away from you because we know you'd rather not have health care protection for your family, for your kids, for your spouse, for anybody in your family who needs it. But you hear the same stuff all over again. So yesterday, Republicans did. By the way, one other thing that President Obama told Democrats, which I think is phenomenal. President Obama told Democrats yesterday. He said, you know what? Mostly they don't like this because it's called Obamacare. So from now on, let's call it Trump care.
Sure.
Whatever they come up with, let's call it Trump care. Okay? I love that. I love that. Let them own it.
Yeah.
Let them own it.
Sure.
Now, own what is the question? Yeah, they want to repeal. So yesterday, they took the first step. They approved a resolution that they will now consider a budget plan, and whenever that vote takes place, 2 or 3 weeks from now, that budget will include the repeal of Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act, as we know it. So they haven't done it yet. They took the first step to allow themselves to do it down the road. But so that's to repeal. Again, they don't, as Paul Ryan admitted yesterday, they don't know what they would replace it with. Here is Paul Ryan trying to have it both ways.
We have a plan to replace it. We have plenty of ideas to replace it, and you'll see as the weeks and months unfold what we're talking about replacing it.
As the weeks and months unfold. Wait.
Those weeks and months could turn to years.
By the way, it's already been 7 years. They've been dicking around with this for 7 years.
They haven't done it yet.
Yeah, that's Elijah Cummings yesterday. 7 years, they haven't done it yet. They haven't come up with a plan yet. Now they say, we still don't have a plan, but we're already going to repeal it. Yeah, this is a catastrophe in the making. I think it proves, again, just like with the Congressional Ethics Committee, it proves that Republicans are going to overreach, overplay their hand, and that it's going to backfire. Which gets to the question of how, which I think is the question of the day. And it's a question that I get asked everywhere I turn. I'm on vacation. I was trying to stay away from this mess, trying to stay away from politics, trying not to talk about Donald Trump. And everywhere I would go, people would say, Bill, how are we going to survive Donald Trump? And that's really worth talking about. And it's interesting. I used to say any sane thinking American, I think, is asking that question because it's going to be bad. We said this before. It's going to be really, really bad, friends. I mean, this is not just, we didn't get Al Gore, we got George Bush instead. I mean, this is Disasterville because Donald Trump on every front, every single front, is totally against anything that we believe in, anything we stand for, anything we fought for, anything that we have won. And so people are asking again, how do we survive Donald Trump? In fact, landed on our desk this morning a little book I didn't even know about called Trump Survival Guide.
It's appropriate.
Yeah, a guy named Gene Stone. They just landed on, didn't even know about it. But that's the question of the day. How do we survive? Love your comments on Twitter at BP Show, how we survive. I'll tell you how we survive. I think we survive 2 words, I would say. Fight back. Fight back at every single level with every tool we have. And that means, again, his agenda is so bad for America, so contradictory to American values, that I think it means full, all-out opposition from day one. No honeymoon for Donald Trump or congressional Republicans. No compromise. No meeting them halfway. No sitting down and saying, okay, how can we solve problems together? No, no, no from the very beginning. And I might also add that is not unprecedented. It's exactly what Republicans did with Barack Obama. Exactly. From day one. Remember, they said they were going to make him a one-term president. That was their goal. And when I say that, no compromise all the way, no meeting them halfway, no helping them out, that's got to be, I think, at every level. It's not just it's congressional Democrats, yes, House and Senate, but because Republicans control, this is the most important point maybe we make today, because Republicans control here in Washington, the House and the Senate and the White House, no matter how hard, and boy, I hope again that we can count on those Democrats in the Congress to fight every tooth and nail every step of the way. And if they don't, we're going to raise holy hell. But even if they do, there's only so much they can do. I think most of the fight back and the pushback has to come from the state level and from the streets. It's like back in the 1960s, they used to say, democracy is in the streets. I think democracy is in the streets for the next 4 years. And it's got to come. The governors have got to lead the way. State legislators have got to lead the way. Every progressive organization, that's got to be their agenda. Every Democratic activist, political activist, even Republicans who still believe in this republic, have to lead the way. And the media's got its job to do too, to make sure that we unmask his lies and tell the truth. So I think it's got to be a concerted effort at every single level. Fight back. It's got to be our motto.
I get a lot of that everywhere I go now. People are just like, how are we going to make it?
Yeah.
How are we going to make it? And, there was a period of time after the election where I just said, okay, I'm going to put my head down. I'm going to take care of my kids.
Yeah.
I love the people around me. And
that's good to do.
And that helped for a couple days.
Yeah.
And then after that just sort of turned to, this isn't enough. This is not enough. And you've got to find the people if you're not out there yourself, right? Which we do what we can here. You got to find the people who are going to do it for you, right? And that means giving money to Planned Parenthood, finding organizations that need help that you can help with, volunteering your time. And like you said, it all comes back to fighting.
Yeah.
Right? You can't run from it. You can't hide from it. It's here.
Yeah. In fact, we could do that, and we ought to do that. And we can all do that, is make a list of things you can do. I mean, real things you can do. And by the way, the fight is already starting, right? Fight is already starting on several fronts, right? We saw that with the Congressional Office of Congressional Ethics. Republicans did it one night. People raised, it wasn't just Donald Trump's tweet. Come on, get serious. The American people raised so much hell, so much stink overnight that the next day Republicans had to run for cover and reverse themselves. So public pressure works. Yeah, democracy in the streets in the 60s stopped the war in Vietnam. Democracy in the streets this year this week have already stopped the Republican efforts to gut the Office of Congressional Ethics. So that was a great move. We saw yesterday California has hired former Attorney General Eric Holder to be their front man in the fight against Donald Trump. Again, states taking the lead. Governor Jerry Brown in California said, if Donald Trump's really going to shut down all efforts on climate change, including canceling the NASA satellite, which tracks climate change around the planet, Jerry Brown said, hell, California, we'll send up our own satellite. We're not going to let him roll the clock back. Let me tell you another way that the fight is already underway. The Women's March on Washington. There's some 200,000 women who are going to, not just women, men and women, who are going to show up in Washington on inaugural weekend and the day after the inauguration march to the United States Capitol in protest against the Trump agenda. And this isn't something that was organized by any of the professional protest leaders, if you will, right? This is not something that Jesse Jackson or Al Sharpton or the labor unions or anybody put. This was a woman in Hawaii who was just so upset by seeing a person who bragged about committing sexual abuse, bragged about it, being elected president of the United States, that she said, you know, we ought to protest this, put out this word to like 40 friends, and 200,000 people so far have said they're going to show up in Washington. So there's a movement out there. People are ready. I ran into a friend in California who just sold her business, and she said to me, you know, what can I do? She said, I'm willing to do anything. She said, now look, I don't have my business anymore. This is so important to me and so important to this country. She said, I'm willing to, I'll go to jail if I have to stop Donald Trump from doing some of this. So people are really ready. And there are concrete things you can do. Back to that point. One, come to Washington for this march. Yeah, you'll find a place to crash. I'm sorry, our house.
Stay with Bill.
Our house, we already have 10 people staying with us. But get a friend, you know, get on a bus, get to Washington for that march on January 21. You mentioned Planned Parenthood. The Republicans yesterday, one committee, House Republicans, passed a resolution that's going to go to the floor to defund all Planned Parenthood around the country. You know, they've been trying to do that for a long time now. They got the votes. They're going to do it probably in the first month. Send a check to Planned Parenthood today. Call them up. Send a check. Here's another thing you can do. You can call your member of Congress, 202-224-3121. 202-224-3121 will get you to any member of Congress, House or Senate. That's this congressional switchboard. I use it all the time. Call them up and just say, do not repeal Obamacare. I need it. I depend on it. I've got it for health insurance for the first time. It's good for America. Just shut down the phone lines, you know. And as Congressman Dan Kildee told us the other day in studio, any member of Congress gets like 100 calls on any topic, they pay attention. They listen.
They actually do.
Yeah.
They actually do.
So you can turn things around. Again, we've already seen on this House, this Office of Congressional Ethics, we're able to turn that around overnight.
By the way, we're on Twitter at BP Show, where we're taking your suggestions here on how you're surviving the Trump, the soon-to-be Trump administration. Ron B. has a good idea. He says, organize and resist. And for him, that means he is putting together a guide for family with articles from The Nation and The New York Times. He's going to give his money to good reporting and progressive causes like that. That's one way to do it. And
by the way, I might add, you know, our last Free Speech TV, we're on Free Speech TV, part of that, as well as the Young Turks Network. And on our last Free Speech TV pledge drive, for the first time since we've been on that network, the pledge drive went way over the top. That is one concrete thing you can do. Give to progressive media, give to Planned Parenthood. I hope Ron B. shares that little list with us. We'll put it out there.
Yeah. And Jingy says we should begin to starve the beast. Corporations, we should cut off our businesses with corporations who have sided with Trump. So,
starting with Goldman Sachs.
There you go.
That's right. No, there's nobody left at Goldman Sachs because he's already named all of them to jobs in his administration, including the latest, an attorney who represents Goldman Sachs and other companies appointed to head the SEC. I want to come back to the states for just a second. The state of Maryland has embarked on a very interesting tack. It was introduced, hasn't passed yet, in the Maryland legislature, a bill that would say unless a presidential candidate releases his or her tax returns, that name will not be on the Maryland ballot in 2020. Mr. Trump, if you have any thoughts about running for re-election and you would like to have votes from the people in Maryland, maybe you had better consider it. But just a message out there to holding. Again, there's so many things that states can do. They want to gut Medicaid. States can say, hell no, we're not going to let you do it. They want to further restrict voting rights. States can say, we're not going to let you do it. Again, they want to roll back the clock on some of the climate change measures. Again, states can step up and say, no, you may believe that, Mr. Trump. You may believe that, Republicans in Congress. We are simply not going to do that. And they've got an attorney general who can lead that battle. And in California, we've got a new one, Javier Becerra, former member of Congress. And now Eric Holder, the former attorney general, hired by the state legislature to be the point man in all of their battles against. So, and I finally, in the ACLU has put this out there. Right after I think it was 2 days after Trump's election, they put up a full-page ad in the New York Times with Donald Trump's picture, and underneath it just said, "See you in court." That is, so I'd say every single tool that we've got, we should use to thwart the Trump agenda. That's the only way we're going to survive. Fight back, and then hold each other tight and gird for battle. Here we go. Yes, indeed, on Thursday, January 5, and President Obama talking with Democrats yesterday, not just about Obamacare, but about his legacy in general. Cornell Belcher has written a new book called A Black Man in the White House. He joins us in studio in the next half hour to look back on the presidency of Barack Obama.
Live video, Bill's commentary, the best clips from the show, all in one place. YouTube.com/The Bill Press Show.
So they say it's a man's world? Well, I don't see anybody's name on it. While they were out doing their thing, we slowly changed all that. We changed all that. Today, women can do anything men can do. And there's one thing we're even better at.
Don't wait. Communicate. Make your emergency plan today.
Hey, look, it's those guys.
What's up? What's happening today? Let's do those pearly whites, man. Yeah! Good boys, check it out. Stand up, do my terrorists, don't compare us.
Ooh, cute.
Are you good to try?
I'm fine. Hey girl, what's up? What's the name? What's good? What's up?
How many did you have?
I should be fine.
You should be.
Sir, go ahead and step out of the vehicle for me.
Yes, sir. See ya, buddy. Today, Sean's got a hearing. We'll see how it goes. Good luck. So turns out, buzz driving and drunk driving, they're the same thing, and it costs around $10,000. So not worth it.
Follow us on Twitter @BP Show. This is The Bill Press Show.
On a Thursday, January 5, the Bill Press Show, booming at you from our nation's capital of Washington, D.C. And our studio just down the street from the United States Capitol building, where we're brought to you today by the International Brotherhood of Teamsters. We all live better because of the good work of the members of the Teamsters Union under President Jim Hoffa. And we salute them and thank them for their good work. Thank them for their support of the program. Direct you to their website at teamster.org. And we are coming to you on Free Speech TV as well as on the Young Turks Network. And you can join us on Twitter. Invite your comments on Twitter at BP Show or on Facebook at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. Did I get that right?
The Bill Press Show? Yeah, you got it.
The Bill Press Show?
The Bill Press Show.
All right.
You
got it. All right. You know, we have so many platforms.
We could reach us all over the place, man.
That's right.
By the way, we should mention...
You can run, but you can't hide.
On the YouTube channel at youtube.com/The Bill Press Show. Make sure you subscribe, because we put stuff out all throughout the day, including stuff that you don't even see on the show. We have exclusive content that we're just putting on our YouTube channel. Like, for example, yesterday when you went to the White House, you recorded something from the White House. It was up on our YouTube channel moments after the press briefing ended, and it was right there. You just have to subscribe, or else you can't get it.
Okay. We forewarned, forearmed. Right?
You got it.
We got it. We talked a little bit about, we'll be joined soon by Cornell Belcher. He's just coming up now at the studio, but we talked about yesterday the debate over Obamacare. President Obama meeting with House and Senate Democrats, after which several of them gave speeches on the floor. Probably none got more attention and more powerful than Senator Bernie Sanders, who said this is the time to hold Donald Trump at his word. And Bernie went back to April 2015 to remind us. In fact, he took a Trump tweet and blew it up with a great big poster reminding us what Donald Trump promised when it comes to Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. The good senator from Vermont.
On April 8th, 2015, Mr. Trump said, and I quote, "Every Republican wants to do a big number on Social Security." That's not Bernie Sanders talking. That is Donald Trump talking. "They want to do it on Medicare. They want to do it on Medicaid, and we can't do it. It's not fair to the people that have been paying in for years." End of quote. Not Bernie Sanders, Donald Trump.
Yep, that's what Donald Trump said, April 8, 2015. He also could have said, "Happy birthday, Bill Press," but he didn't. And Bernie pointed out that Trump was right then, and he's right today.
What Mr. Trump said was exactly right. Here are the day. This is the day. They want to cut Social Security. They want to cut Medicare. They want to cut Medicaid. Mr. Trump was right, and millions of people voted for him on the belief that he would keep his word.
That was his promise, and Bernie is right. Let's hold him to his promise. This is what you said you were going to do. Were you telling the truth? If so, you cannot let congressional Republicans cut Social Security, Medicare, or Medicaid, or else you're a big liar.
I'm still sort of reeling from hearing Bernie Sanders say Mr. Trump was right.
I know. Yeah.
Not Bernie Sanders, Donald Trump.
Right.
You know, I will say this.
He held it up there.
In the days after the election and the weeks after the election, Bernie has been like a surgeon, going right in and finding exactly what people need to hear. You know, there was that town hall where I think it was on MsNBC where they were talking to Trump voters, and they had Bernie there. And he just methodically walked them through why, if you are a middle-class voter and you have the Affordable Care Act and you have all these things, why it would be completely insane to vote for Donald Trump. And there were a couple of people there who voted for Trump that at the end of it just said, You know what, you're right. we screwed up. We definitely, knowing what we know now, we should not have voted for Donald Trump.
That's going to be the great awakening, I think, over the next year or so. All those people, middle-class Americans, who forgot who has been helping them all these years and fell for the Pied Piper, Donald Trump, who are going to realize that they voted against their best interests and against the best interests of this country, and they voted for a charlatan and a con man who doesn't give a rat's ass about them and is not going to deliver for them. In fact, will undo a lot of the gains that they have already made and make things worse for themselves and for their families. Speaking about Donald Trump and holding him to his word, we know that Donald Trump yesterday tweeted out if I can find the exact quote, Peter, maybe you got it there, basically praising Julian Assange. Because Sean Hannity went over to London and interviewed Julian Assange. You can only interview him in the Ecuadorian embassy because he's been hiding away there for several years in order not to be extradited for rape charges in Sweden, I believe it is, against him, that have been filed against him. So Sean Hannity goes to the embassy, interviews him, where Julian Assange denies that Russia had anything to do with the hacking of the DNC and John Podesta's emails, which were released by WikiLeaks. And nobody ever suspected WikiLeaks was doing the hacking. But where did they get it? Our 17 intelligence agencies all said that the hacking was done by Russia. They gave the information to WikiLeaks. WikiLeaks, which previously had said they would never talk about where they get their information from, now Assange is out there flatly making the point that Russia was not the source, denying it entirely and saying it could have been a 14-year-old, which Donald Trump then picked up.
That's what he said. Julian Assange, this is a quote from Donald Trump's Twitter account. Julian Assange said a 14-year-old could have hacked Podesta. Why was DNC so careless? Also said Russians did not give him the info. He also, Julian Assange used some very Trump-esque language when talking about the media. He says, the media is very dishonest. Trump echoed that and said, more dishonest than anyone knows. So these two guys are getting awfully cozy.
Very, very cozy. In fact, basically, Donald Trump has sided with WikiLeaks, with Julian Assange and Vladimir Putin, taking their point of view, saying he believes them over 17 U.S. intelligence agencies. Now, that, again, holding Donald Trump at his word, that differs a little bit, thanks to CNN, we know this, from what Donald Trump said back in 2010 when he was talking to Brian Kilmeade, co-host of Fox and Friends in the Morning. He's got a radio show, Donald Trump appearing on his radio show, and was asked about Julian Assange.
Claimant will be on. He's going to talk about WikiLeaks. You had nothing to do with the leaking of those documents.
I think it's disgraceful.
You do think it's disgraceful?
I think there should be like death penalty or something.
Whoa! Whoa! Not only disgraceful, there should be a death penalty or something.
Can we talk about how Brian Kilmeade said WikiLeaks?
Oh. Going to talk about WikiLeaks. You had nothing.
WikiLeaks.
Well, he is with Fox and Friends. I mean, you know, not necessarily the most serious journalism.
He did say WikiLeaks, didn't he? That's absolutely WikiLeaks. Okay, well.
So
the death penalty.
But again, there's Donald Trump talking about the death penalty. But you know, you gotta in a certain sense, you almost have to feel sorry for Senate Republicans. I mean, they have made a lifetime career out of hating Russia and Vladimir Putin. And now they have a president-elect who is Putin's best buddy, right? And who says nothing but positive things about Putin, and who appointed as Secretary of State, nominated as Secretary of State, somebody, again, who's a best pal of Vladimir Putin's and has been awarded the Medal of Honor or whatever it is by the Russian government. And so suddenly the Republicans in the Senate have to say, how do we, you know, can we continue hating Vladimir when Trump loves him? And this kind of puts us between a rock and a hard place, right? Now they've got the same problem with Julian Assange, because for the last however many years, right, they have considered Julian Assange a traitor, who should be subject to the death penalty.
Yeah.
Right? Hung by from the nearest tree because of the documents that WikiLeaks released. But now that Donald Trump has cozied up to him, and now that WikiLeaks has released emails hacked from Democrats, from the DNC and John Podesta, and Donald Trump is embracing him, suddenly again, they're caught in this little between a rock and a hard place. Now, can we continue to hate Julian Assange, or do we have to love him now because Donald Trump loves him now? In a sense, it's driving them crazy, which I think is very funny.
It is. One of the things I thought was very funny is Paul Ryan was asked about the Julian Assange interview.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
And he did not cozy up to Julian Assange the way that Donald Trump did. He called him a, quote, sycophant for Russia.
Yeah.
I really have none other than I think the guy is a sycophant for Russia. He leaks, he steals data, and compromises national security.
Well.
Oh, okay.
Well.
Other than that, he's a great guy. Yeah, right. That was Paul Ryan, who was interviewed yesterday by Hugh Hewitt on his radio show. And you asked him, do you have any comment about, what do you think about Julian? I have no comment other than he's a sycophant, a liar, a crook, a rapist, steals secrets.
Other than that,
yeah.
You know, it's going to be really interesting because Trump and Ryan already have this contentious relationship, I think would be a kind way to put it. You know, they certainly didn't like each other during the primary, and after he won, Trump sort of said he admires him. He grew on him like a fine wine. I don't know. Maybe the wine is spoiled. I don't think that Trump is going to appreciate the nasty comments about Assange.
Well, and we remember how long it took, painfully, embarrassingly long it took for Paul Ryan to end up finally endorsing the nominee of the party, which didn't happen right away.
Yeah,
to say the least, didn't happen right away. Well, we'll see how that whole thing plays out. And again, that the Bernie Sanders comments were the repercussion of the meeting, the big meeting yesterday, historic meeting with President Obama and House and Senate Democrats, pardon me, charting their course and making their plans for how they're going to approach Republican efforts to repeal Obamacare. And the most important message of which to the president, as we've been told, was don't help them out. This is their baby. This is their fool's errand. They're determined to go down this road. It's going to be a lot harder than they thought. It's going to blow up in their face. But the last thing that Democrats should do is make it is ease the path for them in any way whatsoever. Don't help them out. Don't meet them halfway. Don't say, let's work together and see what your issues are. No, just oppose them every step of the way. And tell the American people exactly what's happening and exactly what means to you, which, by the way, Democrats failed to do during the campaign.
They sure did.
Yeah.
They absolutely did. This is going to be a real test for Democrats because there are a lot of things that Democrats just aren't going to be able to do, right? Like, I think fighting everybody is worth doing. They're not going to shut down all of the Trump appointees. They're just not. But to make the case as to why Obamacare is so important, not just to the country, but to a large majority of Trump voters, those people, the economic anxiety voters that people talk about that voted for Trump, those are the people who need this. And Democrats just say, look, guys, we tried to help you. We gave you what you needed. We had it in place. And these are the guys. These are the folks who want to take it away from you. That, I think, is something that they can do. And if they can get their act together and can communicate that message effectively, that could be a win in the long term.
Right. This discussion about the at the White House press briefing yesterday, there was a lot of conversation about exactly what the president, what his message was to Democrats in the House and in the Senate, and the president making the point that this was maybe the key part of his presidency and his legacy,
Yeah.
Obamacare, and one that they should fight to preserve, which, of course, is the key part, but not the only part of his legacy. We mentioned we wanted to talk about President Obama's legacy with Cornell Belcher, who is author of a new book called A Black Man in the White House, Barack Obama and the Triggering of America's Racial Aversion Crisis. A long title, a good book. Welcome. Nice to see you.
Good morning.
Right.
Thanks for having me on. I really
Great
appreciate
to see you.
it.
Hey, now, how you doing?
Doing well. A little cold this morning.
It is. Well, you know, it's winter. Yeah, right. President Obama at a meeting with House Democrats yesterday. Is Obamacare, do you believe the single most, the one thing from his presidency that will be remembered, he'll be celebrated for? If not, what else?
Well, I think there's a lot of things that he'll be remembered for from his presidency. I mean, Obamacare is certainly central to this, but you'll remember that when he came into office, we were in disarray. I mean, we were losing 800,000 jobs a month. And
financially, we were
on the brink. So I mean, there's a lot to be said about his stewardship through that storm and getting us back on track. I mean, a lot of Americans aren't happy about sort of direction of the country, but when you look at the sort of where this country is now from where it was when he took office, and look at the growth that we've had. I mean, most of Europe and most of large parts of Asia would love to have the growth that we see right now in unemployment at around 4%. I mean, that is, you know, an amazing accomplishment. And although we've had issues in the Middle East, and certainly the Middle East is a very complicated place. But let's understand, this is also a president who said he was going to pull us out and pull us back from the wars in the Middle East, and certainly some conservatives don't like it. But he has in fact kept his word and tried to pulled our armies back out of the Middle East and tried to negotiate in a way there to make the Arab states there a lot more involved in what's going on. Has it been completely successful? Has it been difficult? No, but I think if you understand where we were in 2008 with Americans frustrated about us being front and central and ground troops in the Middle East and fighting those wars, he's kept his word there.
A part of his vision, one of his real goals, was to be the first post-racial president, if you will, and that's implied in your title. How has that worked out?
Well, it has in a lot of ways. It has triggered this consciousness about the changes that are coming in our country. Look, Barack Obama is someone who, for the first time, because of the diversity and the changing demographics in this country, someone could lose the white vote by the massive numbers that he lost it, but still win back-to-back majorities, right? So Barack Obama is in fact the first president really to win back-to-back majorities, largely on the basis of a very diverse, changing demographic. You're talking about 42% of white voters, and then in these battleground states where you're seeing the demographics change, particularly in states like Florida and increasingly North Carolina and Virginia, the demographics are changing. The Mitt Romney outperformed Ronald Reagan with white voters, and Ronald Reagan won a landslide. Mitt Romney outperformed Ronald Reagan and got 47% of the vote, 47% of the vote last time around. That is because of the demographic changes, and to a certain extent. And we shouldn't be surprised by this, really. To a certain extent, it really is a realization that America's becoming a majority, at least a plurality minority nation, and of course we're getting some backlash to that.
We're not there yet. Right.
We're not there yet, but that's what I unfold in the book. I mean, we have to do better than we're doing right now if we're going to win the future. Look, we are already seeing a Congress that has become completely dysfunctional over the 8 years of his presidency, and you're seeing things happen in the states that, whether you're a Democrat or a Republican, you kind of scratch your head and say this is not normal, right? When in North Carolina, the state ledge, not my words, but the courts say you are intentionally doing things to make it harder and stop African Americans from voting. Again, not my words. The courts say these things. So we are losing our sense of normalcy in this country. And my fear is, look, when one group plays a zero-sum game to hold on to power, that's not democracy. And I think what I argue in this book is that if we are first and foremost believe in the values of democracy and believe in the ideals laid out by the founding fathers about democracy, we're going to have to do a better job and then playing the zero-sum game and understanding that it is a sort of a transferring of power to a certain extent historically, but it's American to American. Black and brown people are making up a larger portion of the electorate. Black and brown people are sort of flexing their political muscle and having a say in who governs and how we're governed. And I argue in this book that we're in fact seeing a backlash of that with the historical group that's been in power, losing power if you play the zero sum game. But I don't point fingers. What I try to argue is, look, demographics are destiny. We're not going to become less black and brown.
Yeah.
So we have to solve for this. We're not, right? So we in fact have to solve this for this on both sides. And what you've seen over the last couple of years, I would argue, is really, and look, and again, I'm not playing partisan here, but when you look at the rhetoric that you saw in this past election, it's straight out of George Wallace, right? And I would argue that Trump really ran the Southern Strategy 2.0. He rebooted it, and instead of just and let's be clear, the Southern Strategy was a real thing. Atwater, diabolically brilliant, right? Pitting one group against another has worked in American politics for a long, long time. It worked less so with Barack Obama because of the changing demographics, but it still was able to coalesce a majority of the white voters.
And Trump was able to reignite it. Yeah,
he reignited it. He actually built upon it because I would argue to the blacks he added the Mexicans and the Muslims, the horde coming at the gate coming to get us.
The book is A Black Man in the White House, Cornell Belcher. It's just out and it's available. We'll have a link up on our website. It's also available anywhere good books are sold, hopefully your local independent bookstore, or you always go to Amazon.com. I have heard from many of my African-American friends and colleagues, some of the White House and the press corps, that a disappointment that President Obama, as the first African-American president, didn't do enough about race relations, that he maybe held back a little bit because he didn't want to be seen just as the black president of the United States. Do you share that disappointment, or do you think he did everything that he could?
Look, I think, again, understanding where our country was. I mean, the presidency is a big job, right? And sort of focus on economics recovery, and also focusing on healthcare. I mean, we've got a lot of back and forth about healthcare right now, but truth of the matter is 20 million more people do have health care now in this country than they had it before. And sure, prices are rising, but prices of health care have always been rising. But what they can't
they're rising a lot less than
they're rising
used to.
Right.
We
have been. So he's done a lot of things to sort of help working middle class Americans. But I do push back on this idea that he could have done more for one group or another. And it's funny that I hear certain groups of African Americans and saying he could have done more for blacks.
Yeah.
But but he couldn't have been just president for Black America. He had to be president of all Americans, and I think he put in place policies that helped rise all boats. Being the first African American, I think inevitably it was going to trigger sort of this backlash because to a certain extent it was a realization that someone who looks like him and represented by the coalition that he represents is now in power. So I think he was going to have a difficult time. Either way, could he have done more? I think it's tough when the other side fought him tooth and nail at every chance, and in fact tried to insert race in it at every chance. It was a slippery slope for him to delve into that. However, I think his presidency has made. Look, I have a 15, 16-year-old sons who now understand that they can be anything. And I think that's a big part of his life.
And that certainly is the proper message. Again, the book is A Black Man in the White House, Cornell Belcher. It's just out. Thank you so much for coming in. Very important topic.
This is the Bill Press Show.
I'm honored. Thank you.
In your new role, we help you help. Visit aarp.org/caregiving for information on how to provide even better care for the person who once took care of you.
Giving you everything you need to fight the Trump administration. This is The Bill Press Show. Live at youtube.com/The Bill Press Show.
On a Thursday, January 5, The Bill Press Show. How about it? Great to see you today. T-15 is what it is, and the big question of the day is, whom do you believe on matters of intelligence? Do you believe 17 American intelligence agencies and the tens of thousands of men and women who work there, or do you believe Julian Assange? Donald Trump believes Julian Assange. There we go. Great. Thank you for joining us today, folks. We got lots to talk about. Alex Seitz-Wald from MsNBC joins us here at the top of the hour. Here is a friend of Bill for the hour. Hello, Alex.
Hey, Bill. Thanks for having me.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you, too.
Nice to see you. We want to talk about Mitch McConnell's challenge on the U.S. Supreme Court, what Donald Trump's administration's plans may be for daily press briefings at the White House, and the battle over Obamacare that started yesterday. All that and more, and your comments on Twitter at BP Show or on Facebook at facebook.com/The Bill Press Show. But first,
this is the Full Court Press.
Yes, indeed. Just a couple of the stories making news. This is a very unusual arrangement, but I think it's very, very interesting. The state of California announced that they have hired Eric Holder to help defend their state against Donald Trump. Now, they say that they're going to stand up to the Trump administration. They're not going to follow along with some of the things that he has to say. They're going to do their own thing, and they anticipate that that's probably going to get them in a little bit of hot water with the Trump administration. So who better than the former Attorney General to help them wade through those sort of murky waters? Eric Holder. Eric Holder is the guy. He's going to go sort of represent California against the Trump administration. I think that's fascinating.
I think it's a great move. It's a preemptive strike.
It absolutely, and it's just one of two big lawyering ups they're doing. They also brought in Javier Becerra as the new Attorney General to replace Kamala Harris. So Jerry Brown, the governor out there, is definitely gearing up for some major legislative and legal fights.
Yeah, I had in fact, a long talk with him over the break, and he's loaded for bear, and he sees himself in the front line against some of the things that Donald Trump wants to do on healthcare, on climate change particularly. Nuclear weapons also, and
California versus the world. It looks like
leading the world.
That's it. Yeah, that's it. By the way, Donald Trump is taking a lot of credit for some of these jobs staying in America, some of the automobile jobs. Well, if that's the case, maybe he should take credit for these. Sears and Kmart both announced yesterday that they are shutting down a lot of their stores. We're going to see a lot of people lose their jobs. Sears said that they're going to close 108 Kmart, because they're all the same company. Sears is going to close 108 Kmart stores and 42 Sears stores over the next couple of months. There will be thousands of people who are going to lose their jobs. I'm not sure that we can hang that on the Trump administration, but if he could take credit for some jobs staying here, I guess he gets stuck with the blame for the ones that don't stay here.
I also saw this morning that Macy's is laying off 10,000 people.
10,000 from Macy's.
Closing a store, including one across the river in Virginia, Northern Virginia.
Yeah.
Yeah, he only seems to care about a narrow segment of manufacturing jobs at big name companies, Ford, Carrier, companies that you've actually heard of, not retail jobs. You could look at the demographic of the workforces in those various places and come to your own conclusions about that one. But I'm surprised Amazon hasn't come in for more criticism here. Like that, I think we have to look at them when looking at why these stores are closed.
Yeah, absolutely. And by the way, Michelle Kosinski from CNN, she was the first person to notice this, but yesterday she was at the White House.
I saw her there.
Well, she saw a large moving Masters truck, a moving truck that had pulled up to the White House. It's that time, I guess. We're 15 days away, so it's time to start making the first runs of getting the stuff out of the Obama White House and get it ready for the Trump White House.
Yeah. No, I saw the girls yesterday. They were carrying a sofa out. And, when you move, everybody gets pressed into service, right?
Yeah,
like
that's
when
how it
Jamie
goes.
moved recently.
Yeah.
Everybody piled. Well, I didn't.
No,
but
you didn't.
Some other people helped out.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
A special Thursday, January 5 edition of the Bill Press Show. Again, T-minus 15 and counting. Toward Inauguration Day, big plans for January 20, of course, and big plans for January 21. To help us all through it, Alex Seitz-Wald, political reporter at MsNBC, good friend of the program, making his first appearance in 2017. What took you so long?
Well, it's I was here at 12:31 on January 1st, but no one was here. I don't know. I tried.
Good to see you, Alex.
Good to see you too. Thanks for having me back.
Hope you had a good break. So among the things that you can't believe he said this, kind of maybe we put it in the category, Mitch McConnell had something to say yesterday about any plans that Democrats might have to not to immediately embrace President Trump's, now elect, still elect, but someday President Trump's first nominee to the Supreme Court. Here's Mitch McConnell.
Apparently there's yet a new standard now, which is to not confirm a Supreme Court nominee at all. I think that's something the American people simply will not tolerate, and we'll be looking forward to receiving a Supreme Court nomination and moving forward on it.
Alex, how dumb does he think we are, right?
Yeah, I think the one lesson of 2016, or a lesson of 2016, is that the American people will tolerate you not approving a Supreme Court nominee, because that is exactly what Republicans did. That new standard was the standard that he set with Merrick Garland, delaying it for 9 months.
Who was nominated last March,
right,
by President Obama, the Supreme Court, who didn't even get a hearing.
Right.
Not no vote, no, but not even a hearing. Right.
And this is the way these things always work, right? The party in power criticizes the party out of power for blocking things, and then the roles reverse. But I think just as Harry Reid, is now a little bit regretting doing away with the filibuster in 2013 for, cabinet appointments, I think Mitch McConnell is going to have some regrets about, blocking the Supreme Court appointment now that the shoe's on the other foot.
There certainly I would imagine that there's some Democrats who won't be in any hurry to meet with whoever that nominee turns out to be, right? I mean, why should they rush it, right?
Why should absolutely? I mean, yeah, the 8-8, the 4-4-8 person court is more favorable to them than a hardcore conservative court if you replace Scalia with somebody like that, which we certainly would expect to happen. And the more you delay all of these appointments, the more time the Senate takes on nominations, the less time there is for legislation, for anything else that the Senate needs to do, because there's a limited bandwidth there. So the more Democrats can delay things, the less the Senate can get done, and that's good for Democrats.
Right. And it will be hard, not that they won't make the case, hard for Republicans to make the case that the court is in such dire shape. It's so bad they can't operate on a 4-4. We must. There's just an urgency to do this right away, right?
I think they kind of gave up the ghost on that one. Yeah.
All we'd have to do is play back some of their comments from last year. Another item came up yesterday. You mentioned Michelle Kaczynski at the White House briefing. I was there as well. Got the attention of Press Secretary Josh Earnest on an issue that has been of great concern to those of us who cover the White House. Alex, here's the brief exchange with Josh Earnest yesterday.
I was wondering, have you had an opportunity yet to meet with or to speak with the person who's been designated as your successor at the podium?
I did have an opportunity yesterday to meet with Sean Spicer, the gentleman that has been hired by the president-elect to succeed me as the White House press secretary. We certainly talked about some of the complicated logistics of working in this environment, but we also talked a little bit about the approach to the job that Jen and I have taken in fulfilling our roles at this White House, and it was a good conversation. And I know that he's excited about the opportunity, and he should be.
He's talking about. He mentions Jen Psaki, who's the now communications director, and so they did. Nobody. That was kind of news that he had met with Sean Spicer the day before. So I asked him what if the subject whether about daily press briefings came up. Josh said, that was up to them to decide. But then I pressed him into what Josh's recommendation would be if asked by Sean Spicer. Here's what I want to talk to you about. Here's Josh Earnest.
What would your advice be about the importance or the wisdom of daily press briefings?
Yeah. Well, the argument that I've made in the past is I think that there is genuine value to the day-to-day engagement that I have with all of you. The symbolic value of the president hiring somebody to play a senior role in his staff to come out here every day, on camera, on the record, and answer whatever questions you guys dream up, and be an advocate for the policies that the president has prioritized, and be held accountable for knowing what the president thinks, faithfully expressing his view, and being factual and accurate.
What do you think?
I mean, I think that's right. And there's a lot of different kinds of press secretaries.
He was really strong, saying, no, this is in our interest to hold these press briefings every day.
Right. And I like what he said about the symbolic value of, having somebody, because really the press secretary, to do their job, they have to be in on top meetings. They have to speak with the president because they have to kind of channel what the president is thinking. And it is a major symbolic role that's person who, gets to be so close to the president, very restricted, who gets to be around the president, then goes out every day and talks to the press, any question they dream up, as he said.
Yeah.
But I mean, just listening to his voice and knowing Sean Spicer, if you know Sean Spicer, I know Sean Spicer, we all know Sean Spicer, the difference in tone of Josh Earnest in this, very methodical, thoughtful pace of the way he speaks, and Spicer is just the complete opposite, bomb-throwing kind of guy, loves to mix it up, and I think that's indicative of, the Trump administration in general and his treatment of the press, and it's going to be a wild ride for the White House press corps.
Sean Spicer is to Josh Earnest like Donald Trump is to Barack Obama.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
In a sense of styles. I don't know Sean Spicer, but from what I've seen on the two is that, he's really an in-your-face kind of confrontational guy. I mean, I can imagine it'll be very, maybe hostile is too strong a word, but contentious press briefings. If he has them every day, or when he has them, he's got to have some of them.
Right. I mean, I wonder if the roles could be reversed. I mean, we call them flaks, right? You're the press secretary because it's like you go out there and you put on a flak jacket and you just take hits all day, and that's the job, and you're supposed to be taking the hits. I wouldn't be surprised if the roles reversed and it's Sean Spicer from the podium throwing out the punches at the press, you grandstanding in the way that some reporters grandstand against the press secretary to take shots at the media for, all the terrible things that we do every day. So I could see if you want to make a pitch to the Trump administration on why they should have daily press briefings, I mean, that might be the most strategically effective way to do it, to tell them that it will help in their argument that, the press is the problem with everything.
I know that, obviously part of the presidency is delegating to other people and having them do that, but there is something sort of brewing where Trump has found the group of people to sort of do his bidding in his own voice, right? Like, Sean Spicer is the perfect guy to go and just yell at the press because Trump just can't, doesn't have the time, I guess, to do that. Mike Pence, when he went to the Hill yesterday, you're not going to see Donald Trump meeting with members of Congress and going through the nuances of the replacement for Obamacare, right? He has someone to do that for him. Trump is just sort of going to kind of
need to
coast. And I don't mean that to be, flippant. I don't think he really cares about this stuff.
I mean, I always think back to that Robert Draper piece in the New York Times where allegedly one of Donald Trump's sons went to John Kasich, asked him to be vice president, and said, "You'll be in charge of everything."
Yes.
What will Donald Trump do? Be in charge of making America great again.
That's it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's it. I have no doubt in this world that's the same arrangement he made with Mike Pence.
Right. And, by the way, not just making America great again, but making sure that the hotels are on schedule, the new hotels in Manila and Bombay and Mumbai and all those places, right? Yesterday we saw a very historic moment when the President of the United States up on Capitol Hill, and the Vice President-elect on Capitol Hill at the same time, meeting with their respective teams to talk about Obamacare and what will be the inevitable repeal and perhaps replacement of it with something else. How's the politics of this play out, do you believe?
Man, I mean, I think this is one of those cases that Republicans are going to learn very early on, the so-called Pottery Barn rule. You know, you break it, you buy it. This, for those of us who lived through it, you know, the Obamacare fight was a grueling fight. Lasted over a year for Democrats. Was ugly, cost them a lot of votes, a lot of seats in Congress.
Yeah.
Republicans are now going to face the exact same thing. They've been spending 7 years railing against this, you know, saying we're going to repeal it. But it was one thing when it was this kind of, you know, symbolic thing off in the distance that they didn't really have to deal with. They didn't have to put forward an actual detailed replacement plan.
And they didn't for 7 years.
And it wasn't by accident.
No.
I mean, as soon as you put forward a replacement plan, you see that health policy just has a ton of trade-offs. There are losers and there are winners. And in health policy, that's true in a lot of policy, but in health policy especially, people will die because of the trade-offs that you're making. And so it makes it especially tense. And then you have, you know, all these other secondary issues coming up, like Rand Paul yesterday going to the Senate floor and saying that he's going to, you know, not support this whole thing because it's going to raise the deficit. I don't think they were really anticipating that. Very small margin of error for them. And the costs of this are suddenly going to become real in a way that they never have been for Republicans. And I don't think they really know what's coming for them.
It is like the classic case of the dog catching the car, isn't it? Right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it was a car that they never intended to catch.
Because they always had Barack Obama, they knew would veto the legislation if it ever got through the Congress, right?
And they were grateful to have Barack Obama there politically. Better to have it as an issue and to rail against it than to actually succeed on the policy.
So here, for example, is Paul Ryan yesterday. Paul Ryan was asked, okay, so what's your plan, right? What is your plan? Do you have a plan or not? Here he is.
We have a plan to replace it. We have plenty of ideas to replace it, and you'll see as the weeks and months unfold what we're talking about replacing it.
Yeah, we have a plan. Well, we have some ideas, and several years from now, you'll see what we come up with. I mean, he had to admit they don't have a plan.
The plan is being kept with Donald Trump's secret ISIS plan.
By the way, in the debate, remember Anderson Cooper asked Donald Trump, "You say you will replace Obamacare with what?" And Trump answered, quote, "Plans that are so good," end quote. So here we are. We're waiting for those so good plans. Those are their plans. Plans that are so good.
Mm-hmm. And so the president's message seemed to be, don't whatever do. They're going down this road. It's going to be harder than they think. It could blow up in their face. Don't help them out. Right?
Yeah. Don't bail them out.
Don't bail them out.
Yeah.
Right.
Because they're looking for, you know, suddenly they love bipartisanship and they're looking for bipartisan support. And, you know, obviously you want bipartisan support on any big piece of legislation. But I think what they're really looking for here is someone to take a suicide pact with them. And if this thing goes south, they want to say, well, it wasn't just us. You know, we got Democrats on board with this too. And it's going to be tempting for, a Joe Manchin, a conservative guy who's up for re-election, some of these Democrats to take that deal, show that they can be bipartisan and gamble. And it's going to be up to Chuck Schumer and people like Obama to hold the line so that Democrats don't do that, so that they can, you know, if and when there are problems, because there's no way to do this without having somebody lose from it. It's like, you know, it's like they want to fire somebody and then have that person still like them afterwards and still hang out with them and go to football games with them. Like, it doesn't work that way. Somebody's going to lose from this, and Democrats politically need to be on the other side, wipe their hands clean of it.
Why didn't Joe Manchin go to this meeting with Obama yesterday? The one Democrat who refused to attend.
I mean, you know, you got to look at West Virginia. He's up for re-election in 2018. He's got to be one of the most endangered Democrats out there. He's kept a distance from the party in general, but West Virginia is not a place that has been friendly to Barack Obama. I think it's seen the biggest single flip of any state from the Bill Clinton era to now. And so he is keeping his distance as much as possible and gonna, you know, he's even flirted with maybe he would be a Republican if that would be helpful for his constituents. He's doing what he has to do for himself.
He did not go to the Mike Pence meeting either, did he? I don't believe.
No, he's floating, trying to float above the fray. But, this is a classic strategy that we've seen a lot of Democrats in kind of Republican places attempt. It often doesn't work because no one really believes it on either side. We'll see if it works for him.
Is there any lasting? The Republicans certainly got off to a great start this year with their with the new Congress, with their very first move in a secret vote in a secret meeting on a national holiday, voting to gut the Office of Congressional Ethics, which of course they immediately reversed the next day, thanks to a lot of pressure from the American people and the tweet from Donald Trump. Any lasting impact of that or effect of that?
I think that particular incident may be in the past, but I think it's a very instructive one on how Democrats can fight Republicans and Trump. His whole message, he got elected on a populist message of, I'm going to look up for you. You've been neglected. You've been, put down. But
Hashtag DTS.
Hashtag DTS.
Drain the swamp.
Drain the swamp. And the swamp is not being drained. The swamp is alive and well and is only going to get better. And I think that's going to be where Democrats can really succeed. And this was a case study in that.
And whoever thought that this would be like a good move, right, or this was a smart move. But it also speaks, doesn't it, to Paul Ryan's leadership or lack of leadership skills. I mean, that he let this happen.
Yeah.
And then they put out the word, well, he didn't want it to happen. Well,
too bad.
He's in charge.
Yeah, right.
I mean, he's the speaker. He appoints every member of the Rules Committee.
Right.
He could easily have said, well, you're all out of a job. Let's get a new Rules Committee. We'll do what I want.
Yeah, of all this particular process in Congress, he has almost complete control over, and he could have vetoed it even then by refusing to schedule a vote on this package. He had complete control over this process, and they said, oh well, some of our people didn't show up. Again, that's on you. There's a whole job. The guy's name is the whip. His job is to get the people to the vote so that you know what's happening.
One of the things I was going to mention, when you look at this ethics stuff, right? I think this is going to be very telling. And some of these guys are going to really get screwed by this. I think Republicans view Trump's win as an excuse to behave like him. And I think that if they do that, they're going to get so screwed. Because only Trump can act like Trump, right? Like Mitch McConnell is out here, like the comment about, the American people won't tolerate blocking Supreme Court judges. People don't like Mitch McConnell very much, right? Like even Republicans don't love Mitch McConnell. Like Mitch McConnell cannot act like Trump and get away with it. And a lot of these guys are going to try and act just like Trump did, and they're going to get hosed because it's not endearing the way that some people think that it is with Trump, right? And they don't think that they should be able to get away with it because they're not successful businessmen like Trump or personalities like Trump. And so this idea that they could just do away with ethics, which is something that Trump would absolutely probably try and do. Right. Like that's a very Trump move. But not these guys can't pull that off. They're not Trump.
Yeah.
But in terms of back to Alex Seitz-Wald is with us from MsNBC, political reporter for MsNBC. In terms of leadership, we've been talking about, but I think you mentioned Mitch McConnell. Add him to Paul Ryan, the two least effective leaders I think we've seen of either party, of either house. Who's the leader of the Democratic Party today?
That's a great question. And there's a lot of sub-leaders, but I don't know. I mean, okay, so I think you've got to separate three tracks here. We have this DNC chair race that, has been getting a lot of attention. Tom Perez, Keith Ellison, a couple of other guys. That will be decided in February. So that'll be the official leader of the party. Then you've got...
But as we know, to jump in, the chair of the DNC is not automatically always accepted as the leader of the Democratic Party. Sometimes depends on the personality, the person, and whether they've got the House or the Senate or the White House. So, okay, but you're right. That's one track.
That's one track, and that's right. Absolutely. I mean, I don't think anybody thought that Debbie Wasserman Schultz was the leader of the Democratic Party. Barack Obama was the leader of the Democratic Party.
Right.
Now you don't have the presidency, so the top guy is removed. So then you're going to have these lesser people kind of duking it out for space, and there's not going to be it'll be unclear, but there is a lot of food fighting going on right now to be the chief counterweight to Trump. So you're going to have the DNC on one side. You're going to have Chuck Schumer, who is clearly, I think in Congress, he's moved above Nancy Pelosi. He's got this big communications apparatus that he built there, and he wants to move in. And I've even heard, some complaining from people that he endorsed Keith Ellison because he wanted a weak DNC and he wanted to, supplant himself in there. That comes from people who are not big Keith Ellison fans, but keep that in mind. I mean, it is a real thing that Chuck Schumer wants to be the top anti-Trump guy. Then you've got this,
and his endorsement, if I can, of Keith Ellison is a little out of character for Chuck Schumer.
Right.
I mean, Keith Ellison, he's got Bernie Sanders support. He supported Bernie. He's got Elizabeth Warren support. He's head of the co-chair of the Progressive Caucus. But that's not Schumer's crowd.
Right.
The fact that he went early on for Keith Ellison shows, I think, that he's trying to. Right.
Well, he knows his only threat is on his left flank.
Yeah.
And he, I think, smartly took care of that right out of the gate. A couple days after the election, endorses Keith Ellison, gets Bernie Sanders with him. And it will, if he has to break with Bernie Sanders on some other things down the road, that will give him some credibility to do that. So you've got those DNC, Chuck Schumer, and then you have this whole other thing going on the outside now among the super PACs, the think tanks, and I think there's kind of three big players out there. One is the Center for American Progress. They're this big Democratic think tank. They've been around for about 10 years now, but they're beefing up their kind of political arm, not just policy arm. They brought over a former top Harry Reid aide to run that. So they want to be a kind of big policy, rapid fire response thing. You've got Priorities USA, which was the big deep dollar super PAC started in 2012 to support Obama. Spent over $200 million this year to support Hillary Clinton. They're going to change their role a little bit and do, not just electoral stuff, but get involved in fighting Trump as well. And then
they're not going out of business, in other words.
They're not going out of business.
Yeah,
right. And then you've got David Brock and his whole world of Media Matters, American Bridge. He took over CREW, Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington, and an ethics watchdog a little bit ago. He's building his own thing. And those three entities are competing for donors, for credibility, for press coverage. So they're duking it out on one side for the outside game. They're also competing a little bit with Chuck Schumer in the Senate, and they're also competing with the DNC. And one thing I'll say about all these people, you could criticize them. All of these people have been responsible for getting the Democratic Party to where it is today. I don't think they particularly succeeded in 2016, and yet a lot of them are still the people who are going to be involved in.
Well, with one exception, though, maybe it was just Keith Ellison.
Which is Keith Ellison,
right.
Exactly.
So that leads to my next question, which is this battle, in effect, a battle between the Sanders people and the Clinton people as to who takes over the leadership of the party?
I think
or put it this way, the establishment Democrats and progressive or revolutionary
populist, whatever you want to call it. Yeah. I mean, there's definitely an element to that, but I think it's been interesting to watch Keith Ellison. He could have positioned himself two different ways when he got into this DNC chair race. One would be the burn it down, build it up kind of thing. It's pardon the Bernie pun, but saying the DNC is no good. They failed us. The establishment has failed us. We need to, start from scratch and rebuild it. That hasn't really been the approach he's taken. Instead, he's been taking the bridge approach. He's been saying, I supported Bernie Sanders in the primary and Hillary Clinton in the general election. I'm the only guy in this race who can say that. I can bring everyone together and unite the party.
And I've got Elizabeth Warren and Bernie and
Chuck Schumer. Right.
He's got some other establishment.
Yeah, like Randy Weingarten, a union president who was a very big...
Lee Saunders, president of AFSCME.
Right.
Yeah, both big Hillary people supporting Keith Ellison.
Exactly, and he's been putting that out front and center and, saying, I'm the guy to bring the party together. So no one is really... Everyone's calling for reform, everyone wants big changes, but no one is really calling for, a full teardown and rebuild of the party, because they look at it and they say, look, we won 3 million more votes, for the presidency. We won 6 million more votes for the Senate if you add up all the different Senate races in the country. Like, the country is we're basically doing okay. We just need to do a better job of translating those votes into actual electoral success. But we don't need to completely rip up everything.
I agree with your assessment, but at the end of it, I still don't see the leader here.
Yeah.
In some other day, it might be a governor, right? That people would say, "Oh, this is the new hope of the Democrat. This is the person who's, younger and full of energy and full of good ideas and not tainted with any of this other 2016 or the establishment politics." But there's nobody out there.
Right. I mean, you asked me a simple question, and I gave you a very long answer because there is no one. There is no one out there.
All right, we count on Alex Seitz-Wald for short or long answers. They're always good here from MsNBC. The Bill Press Show on January 5. Somebody else who might have some thoughts on this, a great Democrat from California, Congressman Raul Ruiz, representing California's 36 congressional districts, joins our roundtable here when we come back.
Take the Bill Press Show anywhere you go. Download our free podcast, search for the Bill Press Show on iTunes, and catch the highlights from every show.
It takes less than 1 minute to find out if you may have prediabetes. You can do it here. But you probably won't. You're busy. Kids, work, show coming back in 48 seconds. So let's do this now. Hold up one finger if you're a man, women, 0. 3 more fingers if you're over 60, 2 over 50, 1 over 40. If you're not sure, keep in mind you're sitting on a couch right now, so 1 more finger if you're not very active. 1 finger if yes, 0 if no. 1 yes, 0 no. Next, find the body type that looks most like you and hold up that many fingers while I look around awkwardly. And that's it. If you're holding up 5 fingers or more, you probably have prediabetes. Sorry to be so blunt, but hey, you're busy. Just go to the site.
I'm a retired school psychologist, and helping people was my thing.
I was very independent and thought I could take care of myself. I fell, and I had to have Meals on Wheels.
After my stroke, when Meals on Wheels started, I was on the other end of the stick, so to speak.
Meals on Wheels, coming to my door as someone who's housebound, having someone check on me, assures me that I'm not forgotten.
Meals on Wheels has given me a mode of freedom that I wouldn't have otherwise.
We're the clients.
We are the clients.
We are the clients of Meals on Wheels.
America, let's do lunch.
1 in 6 seniors faces the threat of hunger, and millions more live in isolation. Drop off a hot meal and say a quick hello. Volunteer by donating your lunch break at americaletsdolunch.org.
I'm only 17, but I know about investing. Believe in something, buy shares in it, watch it grow. So, what if you could invest in the future? The future of kids. Like a stock. Not the kind of stock that's about making money, but a stock for social change. A whole new kind of investment called Better Futures. When you invest, it helps kids go to college. I could be one of the first college graduates from my family. The first philanthropist from my neighborhood. And if I'm the first, then maybe there's a second and a third. Believe in us. Invest in us. Watch us grow.
My name is Sydney, and I'm your dividend.
Live video, Bill's commentary, the best clips from the show, all in one place. YouTube.com/The Bill Press Show.
On a Thursday, January 5, it is the Bill Press Show, coming to you from our nation's capital and our studio on Capitol Hill, just down the street from the United States Capitol. We like being here on Capitol Hill because very often we just snag some member of Congress walking by on his way to work. That's how it works. Senators, cabinet secretaries, members of Congress. Seriously, but we are honored to be joined this morning by a good member of Congress from California, California's 36th Congressional District, the great Coachella Valley, Congressman Raul Ruiz, re-elected and sworn in again and back as a member of Congress. Congressman, good to see you.
Good to see you. It's an honor to be here.
We're honored to have you. Join our team here, including Alex Seitz-Wald, visiting from MsNBC. He's part of that media that Donald Trump hates.
By the way, can you help me get tickets to the Coachella? Because I saw Kendrick Lamar is performing.
It's going to be a good one.
Beyonce is going to be there this year.
It's going to be good.
You can hook us up, right?
Coachella Festival.
Okay, all right. I just want to make sure.
So I need a Codell out there.
I need a little help out there. Come on.
A lot of people want to go. Let me tell you.
I believe it.
Yeah.
You're very popular, I imagine.
I'll bet you get hammered for tickets to that.
You know, a lot of it's, as you know, it's the best festival and most popular festival in the United States, and it has international, a great international reputation, and so. Being the representative of the area where Coachella is at is amazing.
How did it get started anyhow? I mean, because it wasn't always as big. It's just
it's it's just like everything else. You had a group of 3 partners who came together and started producing smaller concerts, and then they started scoring the bigger names, and then it just became this amazing concert for 2 weekends, and the entire Coachella Valley is revitalized every time they have a concert. Our economy's booming. We have tourism coming everywhere, and it's so much fun. You know, I've never been.
Wow,
because I worked the emergency departments during the concerts, so I took care of all those folks that would come to the emergency.
You are a doctor. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, so you have been, but in a sense, an official role.
Yeah.
Right?
So as an emergency physician, I took care of the concert goers.
But I bet you see some unusual things.
Some very unusual things.
Don't eat the brown acid.
Exactly. Make sure you ask what kind of brownies those are.
That's right. Yeah. Lots of water.
Trust the person who gives you your drink.
Always know your dealer.
Yep.
Very important. I mean, I've heard. I wouldn't know. Not me. I would never. But
well, it's good to know it's going to be another great year out there, and we thank you for inviting us all to join you. Now, you had a very, very historic meeting yesterday with the President of the United States, an hour and a half.
Yes.
And I know it was that the members of the media were not invited in. But what was the President's message to you, particularly on Obamacare?
Well, let me give you a little bit of a context of why his meeting in particularly connected with me as an individual. I grew up in Coachella, right there in the Coachella Valley, and both my parents were farm workers. I lived in a trailer growing up. My older brother was the first to graduate from high school, and a high school counselor paid for my college application because we didn't know how I was going to get to college, and my dad didn't know how he was going to pay for college. So I went around the community and I wrote up a contract. I was 17 years old, and I would offer small business owners an opportunity. I said, I'm offering you an opportunity to invest in your community by investing in my education, because I promise you, I had one goal in mind, that was to be a doctor, and I said, I promise you I will be a doctor and come home and serve the community. And so they all pitched in $20, $40. I raised $2,000 that summer, paid for a couple years worth of school books at UCLA, went to Harvard Medical School, the Harvard Kennedy School, the Harvard School of Public Health. After I finished all my training in my residency program at Pittsburgh in emergency medicine, became board certified, went back home to fulfill that promise. And my life mission has been about health equity. And it's not a slogan that one puts out there. It's something that I have personally lived, being on the other side of what it means to not have health insurance, what it means to have family members who endure pain because they are afraid that if they go to the emergency department, they're going to go bankrupt, or grandparents who before were so worried about having to pay for their medicine and just living, not even check by check. It's just like dollar by dollar, and figuring out if they're going to eat the next day because of those costs. So when I went back home, I started doing a lot of grassroots community organizing, led a healthcare initiative that created a strategy to improve healthcare access, started free clinics with organizations like Volunteers in Medicine, started a pre-med mentorship program. And so
this is before Obamacare, right?
This is before Obamacare. This is before me running for Congress. This is me as a community physician. And I saw seniors who, after I would hold my community forums, would walk to big trash bins, and I mean, being curious and caring for the senior, I'd follow her and I said, what are you doing? Because I saw her digging in there, and she said, well, I'm collecting cans because I don't have enough for my insulin. But they're like, but don't worry, doctor. I only take half my dose so that it can last, right?
Yeah.
Or like I taking care of patients who come into the emergency department, young women who don't have health insurance, who have had a lump in their breast for quite some time, but now that their sister's visiting them for the holidays, they insisted that they had to see a doctor, so they brought her to the emergency department, and sure enough, she had a mass as big as a lemon in her breast, and who knows what that is, right? She would have to go have a biopsy and determine what kind, how aggressive, but she's a mother of children, and it's these kind of decisions that everyday people have to make and go through that affect their lives and their children's lives, their parents' lives, their families' lives, that are real, that people live with stress and anxiety out there. And so when I'm in this meeting, and now I find myself in Congress, right? I've never held office before. I never wanted to run for office before, but I'm in office so that I can help that young woman, so I can help that senior, so I can help my patients by fighting for health equity and all those social determinants that determine whether a person can live happy, live with the freedom of poverty, the freedom of anxiety, and be liberated to fully live their full potential. So I'm sitting in this meeting with President Obama, with senators and other my colleagues in Congress, and representatives, and he's talking, and what struck me the most was the difference between this president and the president-elect. Because President Obama did not talk about his money, his fame, he did not talk about all the wonderful accomplishment. He did not once mention the word legacy. What he talked about were people. He talked about letters that he had read from people. There's no press there. There's no need to say things like this to persuade the American public to vote for him one more time, right?
Yeah.
This is about him saying this is always about the people. And this is what connected with me, because this is the only reason why I stepped aside from my passion of practicing medicine as a physician in the trenches, in the community, to come out here in D.C., leaving my young family. I got twin girls, 21 months,
wow.
Sky and Sage, and my wife, Monica. And I love them, more than anything on this earth. But it's that message to serve my patients, to help people, and that's what the Affordable Care Act does. Okay, it's not a Democratic flag or a partisan flag. It is a tool and a mechanism to help people live better lives. And that's what oftentimes gets forgotten in this political, ideological, partisan warfare that happens here way too often, that we forget about the young man who has ulcerative colitis, who's embarrassed to go to work because they have constant chronic abdominal pain or have chronic diarrhea. They don't know when, and their insurance, and then on top of that, they don't know how they're going to pay for health care. Before the Affordable Care Act, their health insurance cost was way too high because it was a chronic illness, or some insurance companies wouldn't even take them. And now they have insurance. They can afford their medication. They have the appropriate procedures. They can go to work. They can feel like a normal human being. I know this story because it's a cousin of mine.
Oh, really?
Yes. Yeah. And so these are important stories that individuals face. And if we take that away from them, then we are not only taking health care or affordability, but we're taking a sense of dignity. We're taking a sense of liberty. We're taking a sense of security for people to live their lives the way they want to live. And this is very important. And I don't think the American people have fully understand, except for those, 20 plus million who have benefited from the Affordable Care Act.
So do you think the Democratic Party has failed in telling that story, in getting that powerful message that you've brought to us out to the American people, that this is why Obamacare is so important?
Oh man,
the Affordable Care Act.
I'm new. I'm relatively new. I just I'm going now into my third term, and I can tell you that when I came in, there's a lot of members who lost because of the Affordable Care Act. So for a lot of senior members, it's almost like survival guilt, and so they don't want to look at criticizing the Affordable Care Act, because that is the reason why they sacrificed so many members, because they helped people. Mm-hmm. And so I think that the message that I'm bringing is that this is not about waving a Democratic flag. This is not even about Obama. It's not about Obama. It's not about Obama's legacy. It's not about the Democratic Party. It's about the people that we are here to serve. It's about the patients that now can go see a doctor.
And the 22 million
plus.
Out in the cold. But Alex, that is the message, I think, right, that the president carries with him every day, and I think the Democratic Party has to carry with him in this ongoing battle over Obamacare.
Yeah, and I think it's been lost in these past 7 years that we've been debating this. But I just wonder, now that we're here and the consequences are real, because you do have people who are actually on this.
They're very real.
How do you now tell that story? How do you, not just make it this partisan battle, this kind of litmus test of Obamacare, and actually tell those people's story?
See, here's my view on this is that I see myself as an amplifier of the voice of the people. And one of the most important things that I can do is to empower the people, empower my community. So it is not just me telling my story, but if we can empower our citizens, if we can empower the grassroots, if we can empower families who have been shy to tell their story, or who don't really participate in policy decisions, to speak up, to call their members of Congress, whether Republicans or Democrats, tell them how now you can afford that very important medications that is helping you breathe. Tell them how you have noticed that you have saved, seniors have saved on average nearly $2,000 a year and on medications. Talk about this in your churches, in your schools and stuff. That is, I think, is going to be a very important strategy. But also, it's leaders and people who have the honor of being able to sit in front of Bill. In the Bill Press show to talk about these things, need to step it up and do that, and I think that's what we need to do.
And do you think it can really break through? I mean, because most members of Congress, I feel like, are probably just so locked into their partisan trenches. If you get phone calls, will you actually change your mind? If you're
I think some people will make phone calls. Look at the fiasco that just happened with the Republican Party wanting to, in secret, closed-door chambers, change the ethics committee that is supposed to put on check the powerful, especially those in the majority, to disband that, so that they can continue, their powerful practices without any checks and balances. So a lot of people were upset. And don't be fooled. Trump didn't call them to say, listen, this is a bad idea. He just said, this is the wrong timing. This is the wrong timing. And if you look at all those Republicans who voted against it, they're not saying, no, wait a minute. We have to have these checks and balances. Ethics and holding members of Congress to the highest standards is important, and this is wrong. No, they said, this is wrong timing.
Yeah, right.
This is not the right time to do this, guys.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll wait and we'll do it later. Congressman, I know this is an important work day for you, so we've got to let you go. But I'm so glad you're there, and I hope that, and I know you will be one of the leaders among the Democrats in Congress, fighting to, again, not protect President Obama's legacy, but to save lives.
Absolutely, that's the key.
And to help the American people. Thank you so much
Absolutely.
for coming in
Thank
today.
you.
All right,
thank you,
Congressman Raul Ruiz, again from 36th Congressional District, Coachella Valley. No, you had it. I thought you had a point. Great to see you, Congressman. All right. Thank you. Right.
Pleasure.
And we'll continue with Alex here. There we go. So, Alex, this has got to be the heart of the message, doesn't it, for Democrats?
Yeah, I think absolutely. I mean, and it's again, though, it's been so lost, and I think Democrats. You asked the question. I think Democrats have failed, and I think the president deserves some blame here. I think he never liked getting into the weeds of politicking and having to sell yourself and promote yourself. He wanted to be above that, but it's a democracy, and in order to defend these programs, you have to sell them to the American people, and you have to put a human face on it. It's an interesting question, though, because the kinds of people who benefit most from Obamacare are the people who are more marginal in society. They're lower income. They're not the kind of people who are enfranchised in the rest of the political system to have their voices heard as much. So it creates an extra challenge for Democratic leaders to elevate those people.
Because, in fact, most of the people who would be involved in the political system have health insurance.
Right.
Have always had it. They either have it through their job, through their union, whatever, right?
Right.
And through their organization, and it's on the margins, right? The people who could never afford it and didn't have access because of pre-existing conditions and all, and cost and all those other things. I mean, Josh Earnest went through some of the numbers yesterday in terms of how many people. I think it's like 95% of Americans who have health insurance get it through their job, right?
Yeah.
And so it's these other people. They're the people in the margins that Obamacare was able to help, and 70% of them get a federal subsidy, which gets the cost of insurance down for them to maybe like $100 a month.
Yeah.
That's never been the case as it is. And those are the people who are going to be hurt.
Right. And we know that personal stories can have tremendous impact on
the ones
public
he
opinion.
was telling? Yeah.
Huge, yeah. I mean,
powerful.
You can look at the other side, the Ronald Reagan's welfare queen, who didn't actually even exist, but she became this symbol of, a major problem. And I think Democrats need to do the reverse of that. But they need, you elevate someone, you elevate a story, and you make it so that it's really it pulls at people's emotional heartstrings, and it makes it hard to take it away. And I think that there's another opportunity in this exact kind of approach to driving a wedge between Trump and Republicans. They are dragging all of his tweets, all of his statements from the campaign in which he said he doesn't want to take away anyone's health insurance. He wants to lower premiums. He wants to expand coverage. It's impossible for them to do all of that with the kind of replacement plan that they're talking about. Even his own replacement plan wouldn't do that. But if they can appeal to his desire to not, do things that people hate, which we all know that Donald Trump wants to be liked, he wants to be loved. Yeah. There's a potential maybe to kind of separate him from the House Republican.
Well, on that point, Bernie Sanders seized that moment yesterday on the floor of the Senate after the meeting with President Obama when he kind of threw a wrench into the Republican plans, or attempted to, by quoting Donald Trump. And he took a tweet from Donald Trump from 2015, put it up on a great big poster alongside of him, his visual, what do they call this?
Visual aid.
Visual aid on the floor of the Senate. And here is Senator Sanders.
On April 8th, 2015, Mr. Trump said, and I quote, "Every Republican wants to do a big number on Social Security." That's not Bernie Sanders talking. That is Donald Trump talking. "They want to do it on Medicare. They want to do it on Medicaid, and we can't do it. It's not fair to the people that have been paying in for years." End of quote. Not Bernie Sanders, Donald Trump.
And words that you would never think you would hear Senator Sanders escape his lips. Here he is. The next
What Mr. Trump said was exactly right.
What?
Here are the day.
What?
This is the day. They want to cut Social Security. They want to cut Medicare. They want to cut Medicaid. Mr. Trump was right, and millions of people voted for him on the belief that he would keep his word.
Yeah. I mean, so much of Trump's success was his ability to speak out of both sides of his mouth, and which is not what most politicians do, right? Most politicians are very careful. They watch their language. They take small steps here and there and evolve on policy.
Yeah.
Trump would say everything so that you, the voter, could pick whatever, most appealed to you and go with it. That is now coming home to roost. That's the reason that most politicians don't do that is because when you then get in office, you run into a huge problem when you are going to contradict something you said in the past.
Yeah.
Republicans are now facing that exact problem with Trump. Is they're going to do something that is going to contradict some promise that he made on the campaign trail.
And I don't want to be too hopeful here, but I can see, it's not impossible to me that if Republicans were to try to cut Social Security or something, Donald Trump could very well stand up and say, no, we're not going to do that. I told you I wasn't going to let you do that. Or, he could also fold and change his mind.
We have no idea.
No idea what he would do.
But right. Yeah, right. We have no idea. But it's, I don't see why he's not an ideologue. He's not attached to he doesn't care about deficits and debt as far as we can tell.
Right.
I don't see why he would support that. And the Medicare piece is particularly important here because they're almost certainly going to have to cut Medicare in order to or trim Medicare in order to do away with Obamacare.
Right. You touched on one question which we spent a good deal of time at the press briefing yesterday with Josh Earnest talking about. So President Obama goes up to the Hill today and he says, "Okay, here's the battle. You can't help them out at all. You can't bail them out.
Bail them out,
right?
Yeah.
The race, and then in 2 weeks he's no longer going to be president of the United States. Does he walk away from the battle, or does he continue to be part of this battle in the year and the couple of years ahead? How do you read it?
Yeah, it's a great question. Before November 8th. I was pretty sure that Obama was going to leave office and never be heard from again. He would be off on a golf course somewhere, and I think he was ready to be done. I think that's,
at least in the short term, right? Like George W. Bush did for him,
right?
Stay on the sidelines, let the new man do his thing,
right? And there's a long precedent of that's what presidents do. I think that's changed now. I think he respects the transition to power clearly very much, and he doesn't want to do anything to undermine that. But I think he can play a very active role, even if it's not a public role, defending his legacy, raising money for Democrats. That's huge. He's investing heavily in this redistricting effort to retake state houses, something that Democrats have completely dropped the ball on in the past decade or in the last redistricting. And I think you're going to, it might be more of these kinds of behind closed doors meetings, but because there is no leader of the Democratic Party, as we were talking about, he still has enormous symbolic and motivational power for the party.
Yeah. I think I agree with you. I think he would rather just be on the sidelines, at least for a couple of years, out of respect for the presidency, if nothing else. But some of the things that these Republicans may try to do will be so outrageous that he won't be able to be silent. And with that, Alex Seitz-Wald, Happy New Year, and thanks so much for coming in. We'll see much of you in 2017.
Show.
Thanks.